Hello. In today's study of creation history, we're going to look at the pre-flood canopy. Creation science teaches there was a canopy of water that surrounded the earth prior to the flood. Looking at our historical documents, we can see that this is mentioned in Genesis chapter 1. On the second day of creation, it says, God made the firmament, or the atmosphere, which divided the waters that were under the firmament from the waters that were above the firmament, and he called the firmament heaven. So we have the dry land, the oceans, and some sort of water canopy above the atmosphere. This is substantiated by Josephus in his Antiquities of the Jews, Book 1, Chapter 1. He says on the second day, God placed or created the atmosphere over the whole world, but then separated it from the other parts and placed a crystalline firmament around it. So again, we have a water or crystalline canopy of some sort. What would this do if we had such a canopy? It would absorb the sunlight and equally distribute the heat around the planet. We would not have incredibly cold or hot seasons. We would not have cold poles and incredibly hot areas like the tropics. It would also reflect a lot of the cosmic radiation that now comes into the planet. This would promote health and long lifespans up to around 1,000 years. Because there were no extreme temperatures, there were no violent winds or weather around the planet. And Josephus mentions later on in his book that it did not prevent the ancient ones from seeing the stars at night. Here is an artist's rendition of the canopy surrounding the planet. This was drawn by Clarence Larkin back at the turn of the last century. Many people assume the canopy completely collapsed during the flood, which is where all the extra water came from. And then, of course, with the extreme temperatures, the poles froze, and that's where all the extra water is now. However, look at the lifespans according to the Bible. The ones before the flood lived to be around 900 years old. Noah lived to be 950 because he spent most of his life before the flood. Shem and those that crossed over from the flood lived to be around 600 years. The descendants of Ham, Shem, and Japheth, as shown here, lived to be around 400 years. So the average lifespan after the flood was cut in half, from the 900s to the 400s. But then after Arphaxad, Shelah, and Eber, we see starting with Peleg, lifespans down around the 200s. And then slowly with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, and then Moses, going from the high 100s down to around 100, 110, 120. And we know that it decreased, as today we have about 80 years on an average lifespan. But looking at it this way, if Arphaxad, Shelah, and Eber, the first 3 or 4 generations, lived around 400, everyone after them lived to be around the 200s, slowly decreased. What caused the sudden shift in lifespans to be cut in half yet again? Assuming the collapse of the canopy caused the flood, it is possible that there would be a residue surrounding the planet, a kind of ice ring, similar to what we have around the planet Saturn. And a few hundred years after the flood, the ice ring itself could have collapsed, causing lifespans to decrease yet again. Many Christians think that when the Lord comes back, the millennial reign will be a recreation of the pre-flood world, possibly even recreating the canopy. We know the prophets teach that the lifespans will go back towards 1,000 years, and there will be no more violent weather. Because of those 2 prophecies, it's reasonable to assume that's what the Lord will do. But it's important for us to know that it's not just a creation science theory of a canopy, that it is recorded in ancient historical documents. This has been one topic from the book Ancient Post-Flood History. Thank you, and God bless.